Prime itself was built to unblock philanthropy and catalytic investing with a laser focus on what we call the money in side. So this is money, the transactions between philanthropic asset owner and Prime, and the money outside being the transaction between Prime and, say, a portfolio company or a fund or an infrastructure project. And Tideline defines catalytic capital as debt, equity, guarantees, and other investments that accept disproportionate risk and or concessionary returns relative to a conventional investment in order to generate positive impact and enable third-party investment that otherwise would not be possible. So we started not only with the understanding, but because of the deep understanding of what makes catalytic investing particularly challenging for philanthropic asset owners. After I wrote my thesis at MIT about program-related investments, I went on a listening tour to ask many, many hundreds of different types of philanthropists, do you know we have climate solutions that are not being supported and could really do a lot? Do you know you have tools to step into this gap? What would make that exciting or challenging for you? And after that listening tour, I just had a laundry list of reasons that I thought it was going to be prohibitively difficult for any one philanthropist to do this on their own. And I now think of those barriers in three buckets. The first, as you said, is educational. The second is operational, and the third is perceived regulatory barriers. In the educational bucket, most philanthropists didn't know just how acute this capital gap was. They thought it was being covered by the financial sector. And they didn't know that they had tools like program-related investments. I didn't know that as a foundation director, or recoverable grants, or even traditional grants to kind of step into that gap. Operationally, I found that the grant-making pockets of philanthropic asset owners were not organizationally structured to behave like for-profit investors. And oftentimes the individual people working inside them were like categorically opposed. A reason that you might become a nonprofit grant maker is because of your ire with capitalism. And then in perceived regulatory barriers, as I said, it's just next to impossible to be able to claim that the investment would not be made but for the charitable purpose is just something that you can't know as a single actor without surveying the investment community. And so those are the kind of barriers that we built Prime around to lower. And then today, we build every program to substantiate and characterize precisely what capital gap is needing and deserving of this precious philanthropic capital. Over time, we've found that optionality on mechanism to meet grantors where we are. It's almost like this educational posture to fundraising. Whether you come in with a traditional grant or a recoverable grant or a program-related investment or a concessionary carve-out, like any of those things are needed for these dire capital gaps. And to the operational barrier, I think a nonprofit with a best-in-class investment team that no one philanthropist might be able to recruit in-house, I think due to reasons around cost and talent pipeline, there's too few investment managers for all 86,000 philanthropists to have them. And then as a public charity, we can also absolve regulatory risks altogether by serving as a nonprofit aggregator of grants, recoverable grants, and PRIs. I think also as a nonprofit, we're in a position to go much further in terms of stewardship than typical investment funds, which is required when you're working with many different types of philanthropists. So not only delivering biannual written reporting and hosting an annual investor meeting, but also in constant contact with a relationship manager for each partner, providing grant reporting as needed, and setting the highest bar possible around impact monitoring and reporting. These are all things that the nonprofit can do on top of the investment management. We also do a third-party impact audit of all of our activities every 5 years. And I think while these are things that we hope to see more and more of over time in the finance first investment community, I think we're able to do it now because we are both a nonprofit and an investor. So, I mean, now with 10 years of experience under our belts, we've had some pretty striking lessons learned, and we've developed 7 phases to launch a catalytic capital program. Those 7 phases are hypothesis, substantiate, design, construct, fundraise, implement, evaluate. And I strongly recommend giving each of those phases sufficient time and resources and thinking really carefully about the stage gates between them. As I said before, this nonprofit, for-profit boundary is a very emotionally complex place to operate, and there are just so many pitfalls to avoid.